What's up, everybody? This is Chris Surratt bringing you another edition of the Car Concierge Show, the show that helps with the buying, selling, maintaining, and repairing of your vehicle. On today's show, we're going to talk about the automotive industry, of course, but we're going to talk about how it is one of the most disrupted industries in the world right now. Next up, we're going to talk about those plane crashes, those two major plane crashes that we've had over the past week, and if it's really still safe to fly. And last but not least, we're going to talk about Trump as he enacts his tariffs on China, Mexico, and Canada. So, it was an extremely rough 2024 for a lot of people, and extremely rough for, of course, the automotive industry. So much back and forth, so many jobs lost, so many executives leaving. It's been just a horrible situation for the automotive industry. So, we're going to check out a quick story that talks about how the automotive industry is the most disrupted industry right now. Let's check it out. All right. Are we surprised? Survey shows automotive is the world's most disrupted industry. And this is from Philip Nussel from January 30th. No, it wasn't your imagination. No, you weren't living in an insular automotive industry echo chamber. Our auto industry is the most disruptive of all industries. At least that's the conclusion of a comprehensive global survey of 3,200 executives conducted by consultancy Alexis Partners. As Pete Bigelow reports today, this year's survey marks the first time in the history of the consulting firm's annual disruption index that automotive has risen to the top of the list. The industry scored a 76.7 on the firm's 100-point scale, a 4.7-point jump from last year. Automotive eclipsed media and entertainment for the top spot, Bigelow reports. Alex Partners found that 4 in 10 executives from automakers, suppliers, and dealers expect their business model will change in the year ahead of disruptive forces. There's such a monumental change in how business is being done, Stephen Tapley, a partner at Alex Partners Automotive Industrial Practice, told Automotive News. Of course, the most profound change in the automotive world is technology. Industry leaders continue to grapple with how to make new technology accessible to the widest range of drivers, from early adopter tech nerds to technology-hating luddies. To put it simply, can an industry keep one group of drivers from abusing technology, and can it successfully encourage others to use the technology at all? A prime example, John Bozella, the CEO of the Alliance for Automotive Innovation, said today the auto industry needs to better communicate the benefits and limitations of SAE Level 2 driver assistance systems. ADAS, that's the systems with the braking and all that kind of stuff like that there. Which he called this technology what it is and not branded what it isn't, Bozella said. In other words, recognize that it is not full self-drive. Okay. Bozella advocated for better technology education at SEE International's annual government industry meeting, January 30th, held alongside the Washington Auto Show. In other news, General Motors appears to be finally turning the corner on its all-important China business, aided by the cost cuts, improving sales, and a fledgling turnaround. GM said this week its China operations were profitable in the fourth quarter of 2024, ending its three straight quarterly losses on an equity basis, according to our story today from our China correspondent Yang. Alright, so they're going to start to lead into the other stories. So, what do we take from that? I mean, and this is pretty much why I'm here. This is the basis of my job and why I do what I do, and it's to put the world on notice that the automotive industry is hurting so badly from top to bottom. Where it goes from buying your cars, getting your cars fixed, to the point where we talk about people building your cars, your brothers and sisters who work on building cars, on fixing cars, on making sure your cars get on the road, on selling you cars. These people are important to our industry, and our industry is suffering profusely. It's suffering so bad that it's not even the top industry that it used to be. I mean, the automotive industry used to be the industry that you could go into and you could make lots of money, you could do lots of things, you could advance pretty quickly. But of course, it also had a lot of turnover. It was also a industry that, you know, people would come in and out all the time. You know, jobs would change hands a lot, and that continues to happen. That's what we're seeing magnificently when it comes to our U.S. automakers and our dealerships and our factories, because it's like he said, the industry's changing massively with with EVs and electric vehicles and all that thing. It's creating a lane that we're not used to. It's creating a lane that, you know, is not standard. So that lane is taken away from the lane that we built to further us. It's taken away from the lane that we've used all these years to push the automotive industry forward. And we have to combine both. We have to, like they said, the story is very good when it says that we have to be able to combine the technology. You have the people like, you know, me to some degree, that shy away from a lot of the technology because I know how much it costs to fix. I know how much it costs to put in your vehicles. I know how much it's going to cost you to take care of when you buy that particular vehicle. And then, of course, there's those people that want to take it to the Jetsons and they want to have those cars that drive by themselves and they just sitting there along for the ride, which is fantastic, which is great. But we're not there yet. And we're trying our best to get there without covering the correct basis. We have to slow roll this, and we're not slow rolling it. We're to the point where we're pushing it forward and it's causing problems, causing a lot of problems. And that's why I think that the EV mandate, getting rid of that, was important, because it allows us to slow down. It allows us to take our time and make sure we're doing this EV thing right. Now, I understand that the EV race, we're losing that. We're probably in last place when it comes to the EV race. And that's probably because we started the EV situation a lot later. And China definitely has an upstand on us on that. So it's going to be hard for us to, catch up in this race. But we have to do it, and we have to do it kind of on our own. And I think that's what the tariffs are going to kind of force us to do. It's going to force us to rely on ourselves to build up this industry that we've allowed to take a massive hit and to dwindle a lot over the course of definitely this last year, but years before. We've relied too much on all other places, other countries, to get our automotive, to get our automotive parts, to get our people who build our automotives. We've relied way too much on other places and other countries to do that, and we have to definitely stop doing that. We have to get back to using U.S. strength, steel, people. And that's the only way we're going to get the U.S. auto industry back on top, because we've fallen. And does it have a lot to do with imports and not building here? Yes. Can we fix that? Of course we can. All we have to do is rely on us and believe in us. Believe that we can do it here, that we can build it here, that we have the intelligence to make EVs that are nice, smart, and ready for our roads here in America. And that's the only way, and it's probably going to lead into a lot of what we talk about when we talk about the tariffs that President Trump has put out there, because it's important. I know that there's other reasons for the tariffs, but it's important that we understand that these tariffs are an idea that to make sure that we're not getting all these things from other countries and relying on ourselves. That's why it's really important. That's why I believe in the tariffs, because I think we should really start relying on ourselves. All right, so let's keep going. Before we jump into the tariff situation, I want to tackle this whole plane crashes that have happened. I myself travel a lot. I fly a lot, mostly to Vegas, but of course 3 or 4 trips to Indiana every year, a couple trips up to LA. So I fly a decent amount. And, you see a lot of people hugging their family members more when they drop them off at the airport. and all these things. A lot of worry is being caused by these recent airplane crashes, particularly for people that fly. And a lot of people fly. There's so many air flights every day, to the point where it's a daily necessity for people. So let's check out a couple of videos about these plane crashes this week, and then we'll talk about it and make sure we understand that if flying is still okay.
Two major plane crashes in just a week. I'm here, of course, in our nation's capital because on Wednesday night, an Army Black Hawk helicopter collided in midair with an American Airlines plane, plunging into the Potomac River, killing 67 people. And just last night, a small medical flight carrying a child, her mother, and 4 other people went down in Philadelphia near a busy mall. So let's go ahead and bring in ABC News contributor and aviation analyst John Nance. John, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us here. We know the weather has been rough in the Northeast. In Philly, it was rainy with a low cloud ceiling. Planes can usually deal with that, but as a pilot, that must make flying much more difficult.
It does make things difficult, but this was a takeoff, and weather situation with about a 700-foot ceiling and visibility under that ceiling, it was pretty good, about 4 or 5 miles. Really doesn't have much potential for interfering, especially not to the point of a catastrophe.
And we've seen, John, from that video how fiery that crash was. We're told the plane had just taken off with a full tank of fuel. That really made things worse, didn't it?
It most certainly did. A full tank of fuel and an impact like that, almost straight down at the very last, spread the fuel, atomized the fuel, if you will. And jet fuel does not explode like gasoline does, but it can burn very rapidly and very, very hot. You have a lot of other structures on fire in the vicinity of the crash, and that's exactly what happened last night. That's why it looked like such a holocaust.
Yeah, I mean, it really was tragic. John, while we have you, let's talk about the crash here in Washington, of course, on Wednesday between the Army helicopter and that American Airlines jet. The black box from that helicopter has been recovered, and it was found intact, and that is a very big deal. How important will that be to the investigation?
I think it'll be critical. Certainly, what it'll give us is the knowledge of what was being said in that cockpit, why the aircraft or the helicopter was actually aiming directly at the airliner, and obviously not understanding what they were looking at is going to be one of the key elements here. How did they make the decision to do that? How did they make the decision to go to 300 feet, or was it just accidental? There are a couple of things here that are going to have to be reconstructed in terms of flight dynamics very, very carefully. And with this box and the one from the American Airlines flight, both of them, cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder, there should be enough to be able to reconstruct this down to almost milliseconds.
And John, it really was critical to find that black box from the helicopter, because when we're talking about the black boxes from the American Airlines plane, if those pilots there in the plane didn't even know the helicopter was coming, we don't know that for sure, but if they didn't see it coming and had no idea and didn't even know it hit them, well, that wouldn't have told us that much more. So that's why that black box from the helicopter was so important, right?
That's correct, Joe. The main thing here is to try to get inside the pilots' minds and figure out what they were seeing, what they were translating into the direction they've got the chopper going, which was directly into the side of that aircraft. But obviously they wouldn't have done that on purpose. So what misunderstanding was there? Was it when they reached out, or not reached out, but basically answered the controller and said, yes, we have the traffic in sight, but they didn't? Maybe they were looking at something else. And the altitude, it becomes a major factor here, because that corridor is supposed to be 200 feet.
And we know that one of the black boxes there on the American Airlines plane did get some water intrusion. So the NTSB is working on that to get that moisture out and try to recover that data and that voice data as well from those black boxes. But again, the black box from the helicopter has been recovered intact. John Nance, as always, thank you so much for your insight this morning.
It's we have to pray for these people, these families. It's just a horrible situation. All those lives lost. You standardly, you feel safe in flights standardly. I do. I don't. I believe that, and it's why I don't standardly have a lot of fear of flying or fear of when I'm in limos or stuff like that, because my first thought is that the person who's flying or driving the vehicle that I'm in, they don't want to die either. So, you think that is my first idea to keep me thinking correctly or safely or whatever it is. But I still definitely believe that flying is one of the safest ways to get around. It's still safer than driving, because driving, you have to standardly deal with a lot more drivers than if you're flying. But in this particular situation, they had to deal with another flyer, and that's what caused the problem. So the investigation is going to be extremely important. Finding out, they still have to just find out who was at fault. And it's not a situation where you really want to care about who's at fault, but just for future reference, or to help people in the future when situations like this occur, you have to find out who did what, or who caused what, and all those type of things. So that's why extremely important for this black box situation, and extremely important for them to figure out exactly what happened. We're gonna check out one more video on the plane crashes. We're gonna check out the most recent one. Everybody's pretty much in the know about the Philadelphia crash, so we're gonna check. Not Philly. I'm sorry. Everybody's in the know about the DC crash, but the Philadelphia crash a little bit newer and a little bit fresher information. So we're gonna check out a quick story from that real quick, and then we're going to get to the tariff situation.
Philadelphia, with that explosive air ambulance crash, the death toll now at 7 and could rise. ABC's Stephanie Ramos joins us from the scene with the very latest. Stephanie, good morning.
Hi there, Whit. Good morning. We now know that medical jet was only in the air for about 40 seconds before it came crashing down in this residential and commercial area. Investigators here say they are working quickly to figure out what happened.
This morning, multiple federal agencies on the ground in Philadelphia urgently searching for the black box of the medical transport jet that plunged to the ground, killing all 6 people on board and at least 1 person on the ground. Officials now calling on the public to help in their search.
It's an orange box, but it could be damaged and might not be orange. And it could be in pieces.
I have a lost aircraft. We're not exactly sure what happened, so we're trying to figure it out.
New images from the sky show the gaping hole left behind in this densely populated neighborhood. Cars charred from the intense blaze. The crash and fireball that followed was captured on several cameras. The neighborhood packed with businesses and homes.
Well, I was on the front step, and the sky just lit up orange, bright orange, like I'd never seen before, like someone put a dimmer light on. This area is just full of smoke, and there was just people everywhere. Firemen just doing what they got to do. It was just really chaos everywhere.
And investigators from the NTSB, the FBI, and the FAA all on scene, combing through mangled debris scattered for several blocks.
We have teams who are going literally house by house, door to door, and also our license and inspections personnel are inspecting all of those dwellings.
The flight was en route to Mexico with a stopover in Missouri, carrying 4 crew members, a mother, and her young child, who just received medical care at nearby Shriners Children's Hospital. Overnight, 2 of the victims identified as Lisbeth Murillo Osuna and Valentina Guzman Murillo. Flight Radar 24 data shows the medevac Learjet flying for about 40 seconds. Then, a dashboard camera capturing it slamming into a neighborhood Friday evening. Michael Hitchner was at Roosevelt Mall when the plane crashed, immediately springing into action to help a child hit in the head by debris.
I'm hearing someone said it was a small passenger jet. Someone else said it was a 747. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. All I know is there are people injured.
Officials haven't specified the extent of those injuries, but did say that the injury and death toll could change in the coming days.
wow, this is, I mean, it's scary stuff. It's really extremely scary stuff. It's, especially for people who fly a lot. I mean, you don't know what happened really. They still have to investigate, even this recent one, even the one in DC, they still have to do a lot of investigation to figure out exactly what happened. But, it's crazy that it's happened twice in this week. It's crazy that it's put a hamper on flying a little bit. It's put a little scare in it. It's put a little hesitation in it for a lot of people. And of course, if you don't have to fly, in a lot of cases maybe you shouldn't, but it's not gonna. It's 2 cases out of thousands is just light work. Still extremely sad for those people who lost their lives. Extremely sad for those people who lost family members. The hope is the only thing that we could do is to find out what happened, find out why these planes crashed, and figure out a way to avoid this so there's no lives lost again in the same manner. That's pretty much all we can really do. But let's pray for those families, pray for those family members that have lost family members, and let's hope we can figure out what happened and to avoid this happening to other people in the future. All right, so last but not least, we're going to talk about Trump as he does exactly what he said he was going to do, as he enacts some tariffs on China, Mexico, and Canada on February 1st. Let's check it out.
And Humphrey, good to have you with us. We begin with breaking news out of the White House, where US President Donald Trump has signed tariffs on imports from Canada, Mexico and China, America's top trading partners. Now, a 25% tariff is imposed on Canadian goods, with a 10% levy placed on Canadian oil exports. Mexico has been slapped with a similar 25% tax. President Trump has also placed a 10% tariff on all Chinese goods coming into the United States. Well, the White House says that the tariffs are meant to, quote, hold China, Mexico, and Canada.
My first statement is going to be, why is it that it's 25% for the countries closest to us and 10% for the country that's farthest away from us? I understand that it's probably because we get a majority of stuff from China. We don't get a lot of junk from Mexico and Canada, but let's keep going.
Canada accountable for the flow of undocumented immigrants and fentanyl into the United States. The tariffs are set to come into effect on Tuesday. That's according to the administration. Well, Canadian officials are decrying the Trump administration's move in statements online. Ontario's Premier Doug Ford said that the tariffs will, quote, hurt America, writing that Canada now has no choice but to hit back and hit back hard. Meanwhile, China's Ministry of Commerce repeated its earlier message of caution that there would be no winner in a trade war. And Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has yet to issue an updated statement, but she has previously said that she would approach tariffs with a, quote, cool head. Well, joining me live now to talk about all of this is Arturo Saracan, who formerly served as ambassador of Mexico to the United States from 2007 to 2013. Welcome to you, Ambassador. Thank you for being with us. Mexico, of course, one of the United States' closest trading partners. So what impact do you think 25% tariffs would have on that relationship?
Well, Helen, it's actually the first trading partner now of the United States for almost 2 years in a row. This is in soccer terms, it's an own goal, but if you want it in American parlance, it's a self-inflicted wound, because these countries, Canada, Mexico, and the United States, these supply chains that have become so integrated, vertebrated, will have a profound impact on inflation, on the well-being of U.S. households. There's an estimate that these tariffs, if they remain in place for over a month or so, will start costing each U.S. household $830 in extra taxes.
If we buy the products that's being tariffed, if we buy the products that are being taxed, if we're buying the products that come from other countries, if we buy the products that come from the U.S. or made in the U.S., we won't be paying any additional fees or costs. That's what I've been saying this whole time. Let's keep going.
So do you think there is a way back from this? We know that the Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum, has said that she's essentially got a plan up her sleeve, but she will act with a cool head. So what do you think could come next from Mexico?
Well, I think it's hard for either Canada or Mexico not to respond in kind with some form of countervailing duties. I think that a generalized countervailing duty or tariff from Mexico would not be a good idea, again, because what you want to prevent is by disrupting your own supply chains, elevating inflation costs, cost of living for Mexicans. But I think some form of countervailing duties will be levied on the US. The big question mark here, obviously, is whether this is a negotiating tactic. There are some, included yours truly, that believe that some of this is to force an early renegotiation of the USMCA, which is up for a review in 2026. Canada, Mexico, and the United States governments need to sit down in July of 2026 to review how USMCA has been working. And the sense some of us have is that this may be beyond the linkage to fentanyl, immigration, the bluster and the threat, and be able to prove to his constituents that he has kept his promise. There may be an attempt to force an early renegotiation of USMCA.
So how effective or not do you think that could be, as somebody with your diplomatic hat on, when it comes to immigration, but also beyond that, as you've just outlined with that trade pact?
Well, the problem is that if you look at the numbers in terms of immigration flows on the US-Mexico border, they've been the lowest even since when Donald Trump was in the White House in the first time around.
Hold on,
Mexico has.
That ain't true. I don't know what he on, but the whole illegal immigration situation is why Trump is basing his ideas on tariffs on Canada and Mexico. I mean, China, now that I think about it, that's probably why China is only at a 10% tariff and Canada and Mexico is at a 25% tariff, because they are the countries that are allowing these illegal immigrants to get into the U.S. So what he's saying is, I'll remove these big old tariffs off of y'all if y'all stop allowing all these illegal immigrants to come in. So if it was the same amount of illegal immigrants coming in as it was when he was in office, then it wouldn't be the same situation. I don't know about you, dude.
Been accepting the outsourcing of enforcement-driven policies by the U.S., first with Trump, then with Biden. Numbers are at the lowest since the pandemic. And so there's a bit of a disconnect between the rationale for using tariffs to put pressure on Mexico on this specific issue. The fentanyl and organized crime issue, that's a completely different can of worms. I think this is in part Mexico's fault, because the previous Mexican government of Andrés Manuel López Obrador completely gutted and eviscerated collaboration with the United States in the fight against organized crime. And this legacy in terms of what Mexico has been doing, the fentanyl trafficking that we're seeing coming either in precursors or fentanyl pills, this is an important issue. But where I think the President Trump has made a big mistake is on two fronts. Number one, this linkage, creating pressure points by putting pressure using different issues of the bilateral agenda, putting pressure on trade to get something to change in immigration or drug policy in a very, very complex, deep relationship. This is a bad move because it makes things much more difficult to manage diplomatically. The second part is that
no, it's not. No, it's not. I mean, that they do it all the time. That's why, you know, certain laws don't get in, because when they write the laws, they add a whole bunch of little side things that they want specially done inside the law, or whatever. This is almost the exact same thing. What he's doing is he's making sure to do what he can to prevent what he directly can't. And what I mean by that is, you know, he's putting the tariffs on these countries because he knows that physically we cannot, you know, stop the country from stopping illegal immigrants from coming to their country to come across the border to us. So the tariff will kind of incentivize the other countries to do something about those illegal immigrants crossing the border from their countries. It's just a situation where you're doing something that you can do to stop something that you directly can't.
That Washington, the U.S., is immersed in what I think is the most important recalibration of its foreign policy since the end of the Cold War, which is its relationship with China.
Briefly.
And if that recalibration is going to be successful, particularly when it comes to the economy, to trade flows, it needs Canada and Mexico.
Okay.
And so by slapping on these tariffs, Beijing must be rubbing its hands right now.
Ambassador, briefly, if you don't mind, is there any way back from the brink for either side here?
Well, there might be. I think that there's a bit of a sense that there will be negotiations and conversations in the coming days. Maybe at some point President Trump can claim that he has achieved his objectives, that Mexico is doing X and Y, that Canada is doing X and Y, and that he is suspending or putting those tariffs on hold. That is a possibility indeed.
Arturo Sarakan, who formerly served as a...
They better start doing X or Y, or they gonna just be paying the amounts. And if the people here in the U.S. are worried about paying these tariffs, then buy American. See, that's my whole thing. My whole thing is that, you know, we have to get to more of an inclusive country again. We just rely way too much on Canada, Mexico, China to get all our stuff. You know, I recently. I figured that, or I established that, you know, I had purchased a lot of stuff from Temu. So, you know, I had to get rid of my Temu app because I had to realize that I'm part of the problem. If I'm buying a whole bunch of stuff from Temu, then I'm buying a whole bunch of stuff from China, and that money's not getting spent here in the U.S. Now, mind you, I realize and recognize now that, you know, Temu, you can buy stuff from Temu, and it comes from America, but it probably was shipped in from China to begin with, so still part of the problem. And we have to just realize that the tariffs are meant to fight problems that you can't directly fight. You can't send police over into China or Canada and Mexico to prevent illegal immigrants from coming across the border. You know, you can't stop that. You have to have the help of the country that the illegal immigrants are coming from to help you stop that from happening. And all he's trying to do is to incentivize these countries to stop doing that, or to help us stop them from coming over into our country by saying, hey, look, I'm going to hit you with these tariffs. You know what I'm saying? Once y'all stop these people from coming over into our country, I'll ease off on the tariffs. I'll back up a little bit. You might still pay a little bit because, you know, the whole import-export construct has been destroying the U.S. industry for a long time. So tariffs are probably going to stay there, but I might ease up a little bit if you help with the problem that I'm having with your country. Because I am having a problem with your country when it's allowing all these illegal immigrants to come across the border and to come into our country and make it worse. Now, I have no technical problem. I have a problem with immigrants per se, just the illegal ones, the ones that are coming over here specifically causing problems. So, last but not least, we're going to stay with the tariff situation, and we're going to jump into tariffs as it affects the automotive industry. And we're going to check out this quick story about what they think is going to happen once Trump's tariffs kick in to the automotive industry. And a lot of this is probably going to be true, so let's check it out.
On Saturday, President Trump imposed new tariffs on products coming from Canada, Mexico, and China, and the automotive industry is bracing for what that can mean for local mechanics.
At Girl Gang Garage in Phoenix, Bogey calls the shots.
I think that's a couple of 12s.
But decades of experience have taught her the auto industry is often more complex than the cars it produces.
We are a global market. We do depend on other countries to do what we do.
According to the U.S. Department of Commerce, Mexico and Canada are the top suppliers of cars and car parts, and the largest buyers of U.S.-made vehicles and parts. So the 25% tariffs on Mexican and Canadian goods have Bogey concerned.
In the process of building a car, it can go back and forth across the border multiple times.
And she says a potential trade war is the last thing the industry needs.
We're already seeing significant delays in getting parts as a result of, just post-COVID times, recovering from all of that, shipping issues. We're seeing.
She's spitting mad facts right now, okay? And I have to tell a couple of stories. I'm still in the automotive industry, and I'm in pretty much a collision repair. And I had a 2025 Audi Q7 in my store that was in a front end collision, and the grill for that vehicle, of course, 2025. So of course it's going to have to definitely come from the dealership, but in this situation, it had to come straight from the factory in Brussels, Germany. So not only did the part take about 3 weeks for me to get it, once it arrived, it still got lost in shipping. So it was just floating around the U.S. and they couldn't find it and couldn't get it back to me. And it was, and I go through this a lot. I've been waiting almost 3 weeks for just a Toyota decal for the side of a pre-runner. So definitely the automotive industry has problems with shipping and receiving parts and all those type of things. But I honestly don't see that tariffs are going to affect that. But let's listen to what this young lady has to say.
Seeing parts delays getting longer and longer, and the parts prices are going up.
The Trump administration says the tariffs are meant to pressure countries to crack down on illegal drugs, and that they won't lead to higher costs. But Bogey's skeptical.
We'll have to wait and see what the actual impact is, but I would not be surprised if we see increased delays, if we see increased prices, dramatically increased prices in parts, in automotive repair, and in the cost of new vehicles.
And even some of the most common parts of your car could be impacted. This control module and this gasket were both made in Mexico. These axles were made in China.
We hope that it's just negotiation tactic and that it's not actually going to go into effect.
But tariffs are set to take effect Tuesday. So until then, Bogey will do what she does best, fix cars and empower other women to do the same. In Phoenix, Adam Mincer, ABC 15, Arizona.
And that's what I'm saying. We don't know that it's going to affect anything. We don't know that the part supply is going to slow up. We don't know if price is going to go up. We're definitely going to have to sit with a wait and see attitude. But we're going to sit with a positive attitude. I am. That this is a good thing and it's going to help the automotive industry. It's going to help. It's going to kind of force us to get together, to work together, to make prices comparable so that we can survive. It's just one of those situations where we have to, circle the wagons, prepare for anything that happens, because anything that bad happens, the hope it should lead to something good. And I think that if these tariffs are as considered to be bad, then they lead to something good. They lead for more innovation here in the U.S., more companies being built in the U.S. to make certain parts, companies bringing their factories and their parts factories over to the U.S. so they can build their parts in automotives here. That's the hope and that's the plan. And it's all meant to build up the U.S. All right, guys, I'm going to let y'all get up on out of here. It's kind of rainy Sunday out here in California, but still beautiful. So please stay safe. If you're taking flights, just you'll be all right. Just be cool. I'm your boy, Chris Surratt. Please like, share, subscribe. Hit me in the DMs if you have any questions or concerns, any questions about the automotive industry. And I'm out. Peace.